When things go wrong as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Let's Talk on Huda TV. We have decided as part of our campaign to show solidarity with the Syrian people, to extend our political coverage of the humanitarian crisis in Syria and around the Arab world for that matter, but particularly with an emphasis on Syria. As you know, we have launched a program called the Syrian Massacre, airing at night, live right here at Huda TV. So here at Let's Talk, we also want to talk about and create some awareness of the situation in Syria. MashaAllah, we already did 2 episodes about Syria with Dr. Muhammad Salah, of course, the host of Ask Huda, as well as a well-known diplomat, Mr. Nabil Badr. And we want to continue talking about Syria, but in a different way. In those programs, we had talked about the political situation, the ineffectiveness, and let's say the lack of will of the international community to act on Syria in some way. In these episodes, we're going to do 2 episodes titled Inside Syria, Part 1 and Part 2. In this episode, Part 1, we want to talk about what is happening inside Syria to give us a vivid illustration and feeling and to what is really going on there. So in order to talk about that, we have brought you a well-known diplomat. Of course, you have seen him on the Syrian Massacre before. We're very pleased to have him now here as well. The Foreign Minister, Egyptian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jalal Rashidi, as well as another very interesting guest who has been on the Syrian Massacre as well. He's a Syrian activist based here in Cairo, Egypt, Brother Hazem El-Hakimi. I'm very pleased to have both of you. Assalamu alaikum, man. Thank you for joining us. And Let's Talk is usually a fun program. I really like to have fun, and I really enjoy this program. But I think we had to change the tone a little bit because of the situation there in Syria, and I think that we should be using our programs in the media in a way to support Muslims all around the world, and in this case, particularly Syria. So it's for a good cause, inshallah. And we have our studio audience as usual. Thank you, brothers, very much for coming as well. Assalamu alaikum. And I want you guys to start by telling me your name, where you're from, and what you're doing here in Cairo. And then tell me a little bit about your opinion about what's going on in Syria, starting with this brother, this handsome young brother in the front.
I am Muhammad Garba from Nigeria, a student at Al-Azhar University in Cairo here. I'm studying here as well. So it is very good to talk about Syria incidents because it is something that it affects our mind whenever we see whatever is happening in Syria. So I believe, inshallah, we're going to hear more and learn more about what is going on.
And of course, as a Muslim from Nigeria, even though you're from a very far away country, you still feel for these people because they are Muslims and suffering.
We do sympathize with Syrian peoples because what is happening there is something that it brings. It's not good.
It's not good. And you guys had your own problems in Nigeria recently with a lot of bombings and bad things there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think recently we saw the news. They have their share of problems as well, subhanAllah. So thank you, Brother Muhammad. Thank you so much, Muhammad Garba. From where? You didn't say Abuja or where from?
I'm from Nigeria. I'm from Lagos.
Okay, Lagos. Okay. Thank you for being with us.
Big city.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, brother. What is your name? Where are you from?
My name is Sulaiman Abubakar Musa. I'm from Nigeria.
From Lagos as well, or?
No, I'm not from Lagos. I'm from Abuja.
From Abuja? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Abuja. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm talking about Syria. It's a very complicated problem because you have to look at it from about 2 perspectives.
Which are?
The opposing and the proposing. The government and like the rebels. And you can say the normal people are the rebels, like we too. We can say we're with them. Yes, with the protesters. And we can't call them rebels, sorry. That's a bad name.
I guess we can call them the word, right?
Protesters and stuff like that, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And that's really nice to see that brothers from Nigeria, all around the Muslim world, are all concerned about people in Syria. Go ahead, brother.
First of all, my name is Sharif Ahmed. I was studying at Al-Alton faculty, and I do speak several languages, alhamdulillah, and I would like to go into politics someday. So, and when I'm talking about Syrian issue, I would like to talk about how could the Syrian regime persecute most of people, the majority of people. Other governments are trying to help this regime somehow, from Russia, China, even the Americans. They are doing their best to keep this regime for sake of what? For sake of Israel.
Excellent point.
That's what I'm trying to prove. What's happening in Syria, and on the other hand, when you could focus on the Iranian issue, you'll find that they are trying to support the Syrian regime, both at the same time. So, from all sides, they are trying to kill Sunni people.
This is your point. Thank you, brother, so much.
Thanks.
Brother Sharif from Egypt. We're going to get the opinions of Brother Hazem as well as Sheikh Jalal Mr. Jalal about those comments. Go ahead, brother.
My name is Abu Bakr Sunusi
Thank you for joining us. Abu Bakr, where are you from, Akhi?
from Nigeria,
Excellent. What part of Nigeria?
How nice.
Kaduna.
Where?
Kaduna.
Oh, do you speak Hausa or Fulani or?
La house.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, life you allow.
Thank you. Excellent. What's your opinion about the situation in Syria?
Wallahi, this situation is not good at all.
Very sad, yeah?
Seeing Muslims killing themselves.
It's very sad.
But my own opinion is just that I think just to pray,
This is your advice to make you out
Yes.
for the people there.
because I can't go to Syria to
Do something, yeah.
yes to do something. So just to pray
Yeah.
is the only thing I think I can.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for your
Inshallah.
comments. Thank you.
My name is Omar Salah.
How are you, Omar? Thank you for joining us today.
I'm a high school student.
Oh, excellent. What is your opinion about the situation there in Syria?
It's a big problem.
Big problem. And you are Egyptian, so you can feel, you're not too far from them. I'm sure you have Syrian friends possibly, and it makes you feel a
No.
bit sad to see. Oh, you don't know any Syrians? Okay.
No, but I feel for them.
You feel for them, of course, yeah. Thank you, Brother Omar, for joining us, inshallah. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, brother. How are you?
Fine, thank you. My name is Nabil Idrini. I'm agriculture engineer and microbiologist.
Excellent. When we do a program on microbiology, I'm going to bring you for the guest, okay?
That would be honor for me, of course.
Thank you.
I'd be
brother.
honored to be here. The Syrian problem is all Muslims and Arab problem. It's a human problem.
Yes, a
Yes,
human
yes.
problem we can
Yeah,
even
we
say.
must stop this bloodshedding.
No problem.
There must be stop for that. Many people, innocent children, innocent women, men are dying.
Right.
Country is destroyed. There
Yeah.
must be stop for that.
I like what you said, because some people narrow it down, they say it's a Muslim problem, it's an Arab problem, or it's a Syrian problem. We can say it's a human problem.
Exactly.
People are killing it. Why do we have to...
It's more accurate.
Yeah, it's more accurate. People say it's a Christian or Muslim. We can just say it's a human problem. It's a problem of everyone. Thank you, Brother Nabi. That's an excellent point. Mr. Jalal, what do you think of that? I mean, I've heard people say Syria is not my problem, or it is an Arab problem or a Muslim problem. Why can't we say it's just a human problem?
No, it is everybody's problem around in this area, of course.
Yeah, in the world we can say.
Yeah, and I think I like what Nabil said just now, that it is a human problem. It's not only Muslim problem, because there are so many sectors, Muslims.
There's so many dynamics in there.
Yeah, and Christians, and possibly other religions also there.
Right.
It is a complex, difficult situation, because of course we see every day the present regime there is shelling the civilians.
Right.
They are laying siege around in the neighborhoods. They are even attacking the places of worship also, which actually is something.
Mosques and churches
Mosques,
and
churches,
all.
everything like that. And I think up till now, the situation, I can feel that the present regime in Syria is going into an escalation of violence.
Escalating, not de-escalating.
Escalation of violence, and I do not believe, at least for the time being, what the regime is saying, that it is going to
Withdraw from major
promise
cities.
to
Peace plan. and all.
peace to the start of the peace plan of Kofi Annan. Nothing has shown up till now, because up till this moment they are still shelling everybody's, all civilians, children, women, all people, all sorts of. And the thing which I have been astonished about, or at least when I see the president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, yesterday on the TV, he's smiling.
Yeah.
I saw him. We mentioned on the Syrian massacre.
And
Mr. Jalal.
talking with the tribal
Leaders and-
putting this
Jalbab on and
what do you call it?
jacket.
No, the abaya.
Oh, baya on and this sort of thing.
And he feels that he is being honored or something like this.
Like he's a king or something.
As if nothing is happening in his country, I think.
Mr. Johnson, he had spent 10,000 on candles. It was reported by the UK Guardian, or his wife, while people were
And
being
his
killed.
wife has been online for, buying jewels, etc. While other people are being killed.
Yeah.
They don't have even no shelter, no food, no water, etc., etc. So it's really something which is it's a pity, and I think. But what I want to say here, actually, and to emphasize, is that with all this violence in Syria by the regime, they have not been able to break the will of the people.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
And they have not also been able to prevent the peaceful demonstration with all these tanks and missiles and things, which is something which is actually an asset goes to the rebels. You call them protesters,
right?
But at least the civilians actually.
That's a great point. With all the firepower,
meanwhile, the Russian foreign minister comes, I think, day before yesterday, comes out and says that the rebels cannot beat the army, the Syrian army. But the Syrian army, they
cannot beat the rebels.
The people now are doing something which I admire, at least. I don't like what is going on there, but at least now they are, first of all, the FSA, the Free Syrian Army, actually. They are being, first of all, they are being welcomed by people, Syrian people all over,
right?
Which is a good sign.
Right.
The other thing, actually, which I think is growing up, that they are buying also arms from the security forces.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The other thing also that they are smuggling arms from the neighboring countries, especially from Iraq and Lebanon, which is a black market for arms. Actually.
Yeah, excellent point. Brother Hazem, I wanted to ask you. You're Syrian and you've been very active in this whole thing. What did you think of I want to ask you two questions. First, let me just start with, what do you think of the so-called Kofi Annan peace plan? I thought he should be there to arrest him. But then they treat him as a legitimate head of state, which is just, should we laugh or cry? It's sad.
Yeah, it's just like, how we had the Arab League plan for observers and just solve it peacefully.
It's a joke.
And number of martyrs just increased by that. Now the same thing is happening. They're using more air force because, it's like what people are demanding inside Syria is a buffer zone and a no-fly zone.
Okay.
And there's not even, you don't even feel the appetite in the international committee for a no-fly zone. So he's just using air force. Like, I'm not going to say he, because it's not only Bashar, it's the whole regime we're talking about. So they are using air force to shell and kill people.
But with all due respect to the Syrian people, I mean, this didn't happen overnight. I mean, this is 30, 40 years brewing. I mean, so where have the Syrian people been? Why have they not voiced their concern for the last 40 years? I mean, has there been protests before? And in my opinion, I'm sorry to say, I feel, with all due respect, the Arab people in the Middle East, they've been sleepwalking for many years.
No, it is a contagious, I think, disease, as you say, for what we call the Arab Spring.
Right.
Because it starts with Tunisia, then Egypt, then Libya, and now Syria, and sometimes some trouble in Bahrain, etc.
Right.
I wouldn't call it a disease, but...
disease means quote unquote.
But I mean, the Arab Spring...
It's a figurative sort of...
Well, my question is, the Arab Spring has happened now. Why didn't it happen 30 years ago? I mean, why at the last minute now the Arabs wake up? I'm so happy they woke up, but better late than never.
Because you keep on bearing and bearing and bearing. And inside Syria, in the 80s, they tried some kind of coup or just to get rid of Hafiz al-Assad.
In 1982, I believe, it's the month of February.
Exactly, in Hama. That's when Hafiz...
he killed 5,000.
He killed just like his son.
Around 40,000.
The planes were...
40,000 in 2 weeks in Hama, we're talking. There was no media coverage. But 40 years later, when revolution started, people saying it's like, okay, they can't suppress us anymore. We gotta do something. We gotta be free.
Yeah, we're gonna be free. What do you see in the future for Syria, Mr. Jalal?
I think if the Syrians are persistent, and they are, I'm sure that they are, because they are fed up with this.
Yeah,
they are good people.
They came so far, they're so close.
Like the Egyptians, they have been bearing all sorts of oppression, etc. For the last 30 years in Egypt, for example, maybe a little bit more even. Before that, say we can say 80 years since
1982.
King Farouk.
Oh, for the Egyptians, yes, King Farouk.
So I think the Syrians are going through the same process sort of
right, same
thing.
process,
But I wouldn't say they're more like fed up of. It's like I would say the regime could have stopped the whole revolution if they did actually act well to it. It's like.
What do you mean?
At first,
reform?
yes, like let's talk March 15 and March 20th, like we're talking last year.
Right. Okay.
We had like a couple of martyrs and then hundreds of martyrs. People were willing to go with the reforms.
Right.
But the regime kept on killing and torturing and arresting people.
Yeah.
So they did not even allow the people to accept their offers.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, in the beginning of the Arab Spring, I was actually in the United States, and I said to my wife, I said, look, the Arab people finally decided to go to the street and make protests here in Cairo and other places, right? And the response of the government, they didn't even try to listen and make a couple reforms I think no, they respond with violence right away. So they made the revolution happen.
People in authority all over, you see, they think that these things, this is some sort of a game, play.
Right.
Yes.
They take it very lightly. They
Right.
don't. I mean, for example, in Egypt here, you see, Mubarak thought, and his disciples of all the other groups,
Regime, right? We could
so
say
that I mean, the people here, they said that it's not. They are making demonstrations.
Exactly.
And I remember very well, he said something which is going into history, when they said at one time that the Egyptians are initiating a parallel council of People's Council,
Right.
Parliament.
When was this?
Parliament.
When is this?
That was in just a couple of months before it started.
Oh, okay.
That was late after July.
Just before it all started.
To 2010.
Okay, right.
Yeah. At this time, he said something which went into history, and still it is being registered. He said, "Let them interfere in themselves. Let them enjoy."
Yes.
خليهم يتسلوا.
That's a quote from Hosni Mubarak.
I mean, I think this is the same
The arrogance.
mentality which is going on in certain different, I won't say all, but at least different minds of some of the
Yeah,
I think it was his son who said that, Ala Mubarak.
He said that let them play as if he's
Yeah.
so
No,
arrogant.
Mubarak himself.
Mubarak himself.
Himself, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent point. I have a lot of more questions for you guys. We're going to get to you in the next segment. Stay tuned, you guys at home, for more Let's Talk about Syria. We're going inside Syria, so stay tuned.
إذا دكت الأرض دكا
Do you want to learn how to recite the Quran? Do you want to read Islamic books in Arabic? You may enroll in a small group.
العسل من السوق اشترى. نعم اشترى.
A private lesson.
من مثلها في فضلها.
من مثلها في فضلها.
Or at your own pace to fit your schedule.
هل أنت طالب في المعهد؟
Courses for sisters with female instructors. We're bringing you the latest software technology, professional instructors, and a state-of-the-art classroom to the comfort of your home. Enroll now in Huda Academy. Huda Academy, your gateway to authentic Islamic knowledge.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Let's Talk, and welcome back to Huda TV, and welcome back to our continued political coverage of the humanitarian crisis that is going on right now in Syria. We are extending our campaign here at Huda TV to show solidarity with the people of Syria, and we will continue to do so, inshallah, until this situation resolves itself and goes back to a better situation. Of course, I'm joined by the former Foreign Minister of Egypt, Mr. Jalal Rashidi, as well as Syrian-Canadian activist, Brother Hazim al-Hakimi. Brother Hazim, before the break, you had some special notes that you really wanted to share with the viewers and with Mr. Jalal and myself. Go ahead, bro.
Yes, a couple comments about what we spoke about earlier, about double perspective about what's going on in Syria from the regime's side and from the people's side.
Excellent.
Exactly. It's like from the regime's side, they're calling them rebels, but from the people's side, those are not rebels, those are the people.
Right.
And they are the ones who are supposed to, it's their country. It's not the regime's country. They're the ones to say what they want in their countries.
Right.
And if the regime's perspective is so true, then why doesn't it allow media to get into Syria.
Obviously, yeah, good, excellent point, yeah.
Yes, that's one of the points. The other point about talking about Israel as a whole, it's like nobody intervenes into Syria because of Israel. It's not only that. Israel is partially a part of it, but I would say it's like every country it thinks about the pros and cons, about the problems. Like it's not like in Libya, it's not like in Egypt, it's not like in Tunisia. Every country is kind of different, and they're looking for the pros and cons. And in Syria, it's kind of more complicated how the regime has extensive powers and how it's backed up by China, Iran, and Russia, by arms and all.
So it's very complex.
Yes, exactly. And the other point about it's being a humanitarian cause more than a Muslim cause or an Arab cause, it's very true, but when we talk inside Syria, sometimes you get cases of sect problems.
Sectarian problems,
exactly, in Syria, where you find sometimes you find Sunnis being targeted in some areas in Syria by
this
attacks.
is so strange for me because it's a Sunni country. So how can this be?
It is a Sunni country. It's like when you say about 80% of the population is Sunni, okay, but then you've got 20% which aren't Sunni. Okay. And then you've got, as I said, it's very complex. You've got partially Iran getting into this, and then other countries. And what the regime is trying to do is make this peaceful revolution into something sectarian.
Right.
So post-revolution, it will not end. It will just keep on having more and more problems.
Like we've seen in Iraq, isn't that right, Mr. Jalal?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this opened up a can of worms and a disaster with car bombings and people killing each other and Sunni Shia, a full-blown civil war.
I think I have to just add something here. I think the situation in Syria is not only humanitarian, it is political also.
Okay. That's a major point.
You cannot talk about it as a humanitarian issue only, because that would,
it doesn't give
the issue.
We can say the humanitarian crisis is a result of the political crisis, right?
This is the point number one. And point number two, I think there is an element of, I smell that there is an element of international, I won't say conspiracy, but sort of a plan to come to bring in what they have been calling before and up till now the Greater Middle East.
Okay, I want to hear about this. I want you to say, go ahead.
Yeah.
What is the Greater Middle East? And I would like to know your interesting comments and your insight, Brother Hazem, after that. Go ahead, Mr. Jalal. You have the floor. What do you mean by the Greater Middle East, and who wants to see this Greater Middle East? And after these comments, we'll go to the studio audience, you guys, so sit tight.
This is, of course, the West and the United States.
Okay,
because they have got a plan. Okay. Since the last almost 10 years or something like this.
Okay, to create a greater. What does that mean?
Yeah, and you see, if you go back, say about almost 10 years back, before the occupation or at least what happened in Iraq.
Okay.
When the American troops, just
destroyed,
landed,
invaded Iraq.
Yeah, at least landed there, etc., etc.
Okay.
I think this is part of the whole scene. This is the start of it. Then you see that what has been happening in Libya and before in Tunisia.
What do you mean what's happening in Libya? You mean now it's beginning to split apart?
Intervention.
The intervention.
The intervention of the West in Libya.
Okay.
It is not free of charge.
Exactly, yes.
Well put, yeah.
And I think what is happening in Syria and what is being mentioned and always mentioned and talks that it is not wise to intervene in Syria or to arm the people, the opposition.
Right, the opposition.
I think this is because they do not want to repeat what has been happening, what is happening in Egypt. Right. Because I think the scene in Egypt has changed in the eyes of the West.
We can say it backfired.
Yeah. They thought that something else was going to happen.
What did they think was going to happen, and what happened?
Yeah.
Clarify for our viewers, or maybe possibly don't know. What did they think was going to happen, and then what actually is happening?
They thought that they would be able to have, a platform of an open area, of an open scene with gold and silver,
okay,
sort of,
right,
where they can have their own say.
Right, open influence for them.
Yeah. So now the scene in Egypt is a little bit complicated.
Okay.
Because there has been new players.
Many new players.
Islamic trend
that wasn't was not welcomed, we can say, by the West, right?
Yeah, they can digest it, but they are not very. They and Israel, I think, they are not
satisfied.
Satisfied, not only satisfied, they are a little bit worried about what can happen.
Right. Okay.
Are they going to, for example, they cancel the treaty with
the Egyptians
Camp David treaty.
Yeah, they're scared about that. Yeah, they're not sure what will happen.
Or the treaty of peace with Israel or not.
Right.
Of the present ruling
entity of Egypt,
and whatever it is, Ikhwan or whatever they are.
Right, Muslim brother. So now that, Mr. Jalal, now you have told us that you believe this is part of a plan, and Syria is just part of the plan of the greater Middle East. The Secret Service will be waiting for you outside. It was nice knowing you. I'm just joking. No, I agree with you. You know, and I've seen this on other talk shows. People talk about it, and it's a great possibility. And
they have been talking openly.
I mean, it's a possibility that may happen.
They are not talking about it now, but they have been talking about it
years.
Years. I mean, we have not to fill our memories.
Yeah, we don't have to go too far with Donald Rumsfeld and all this talk about the Middle East. We have a question. Go ahead, brother. Mohammed from Nigeria.
From Nigeria. Please, my question is that I just want to know, according to your opinion, what do you think that in order to get out of this continuous massacre in Syria, so the Syrian people have to resort to the ceasefire agreement, or why some say that ceasefire is not going to be the best thing for them, but rather that they should be harmed by other countries of the world. So what do you think that would be the best solution to this problem?
Can answer, and then Mr. Jalal can answer that. So the question is, what is the best situation? I think you got the question, foreign intervention or ceasefire. What do you, go ahead, Brother Hazem, and then Mr. Jalal, inshallah.
The people in Syria have tried for so long for the ceasefire, but the response from the regime is more suppression. We've watched for a whole 13 months right now, we're talking, and the regime has not stopped fire for a single day. It's like shelling keeps on increasing. I was like, I'm going to be talking about Homs. I'm a person from Homs, in Syria. Yesterday, they were shelling new areas they used to not shell before. Now, it's like 3 days ago, they shelled 200 houses to the ground and damaged 500 houses. Yesterday, we had more than 1,000 refugees getting to the borders of Turkey. Where do you see ceasefire in this? I can't see it. What people are demanding in Syria is a no-fly zone and a buffer zone. And it's like it's better now than never.
What about foreign intervention? Libya
This
style?
is this is the kind of intervention Syria is in need of. They don't need anybody inside Syria. It's like, let's say, bases and stuff.
Right.
What we need is a no-fly zone and buffer zone, and arm the opposition, arm the FSA. FSA is now legitimate in Syria. Everybody is happy with the FSA. They will solve this.
What do you think? I mean, that's an interesting statement. But I mean, he mentioned something.
Well, I have to go back to the big players.
Okay.
The Americans do not agree to the no-fly.
Yeah.
Why would they never agree to it?
Because they do not want to repeat the Libyan scene.
What about the other players?
And they claim that it is enough to use economic sanctions or political pressures,
which will not work. It's not enough.
Which won't work because the situation is different. Say, for example, here in Egypt, the army here in Egypt did not intervene. That's why the revolution went smoothly.
Thank God. Of course, it would have been a disaster, right?
Number one. In Libya, situation is a little bit different because they are tribal, areas, and they have been able to get arms. Already, they have got their arms, and then the NATO intervened.
Okay.
So it is a little. The situation is a little bit different.
What about the other major players like China and Russia?
The Russians have got a naval base in Syria.
Yes.
So they are not. I don't think they will. They will
sell out
it's
Syria.
It's the only military base in the Middle East.
So
for Russia.
So this is a huge investment they have in Syria.
Though the reports very lately, I think up to yesterday, mentioned something that the Syrians may go. The Russians may go around with the Kofi Annan's plan.
I think I saw that as well. Yeah.
But whether this is going to work or not is yet to be seen.
Yeah.
Because Kofi Annan, he's talking about what? The plan. He's talking about, first of all, ceasefire. Then he's talking, number one, and he's talking about the pulling back the heavy armor, heavy.
Right, out of the major cities by April 10th, I think. They said, or
Yes,
something
and
like
then the third one is forces to being pulled back.
Right. Okay.
This will take how much time? When I mean, I think the regime is not cooperating.
I think it's a very strange thing to think of the heavy Russian and Iranian influence in Syria. But for whatever reasons, I guess it makes some sense. Obviously, the Russians have an investment there. The Iranians have some sort of investment there, I guess. But the Chinese, I mean, what kind of market? I mean, like you said before, there's just a market for them. They're looking at it from an economic perspective. What kind of market is Syria? 20 million people. What are the Chinese involved for? I mean, if you look at the world markets, people like to look at, multinational companies look at China, 1 billion people, big markets, not Europe, 500 million people, not little Syria with 20 million people.
I think possibly the Chinese are looking forward that they would like to take a decision which is against the Western decision.
Just a game of politics for
game of politics.
Yeah, okay, right.
I mean, broadly speaking.
Broadly speaking.
Now they are trying to jump bit by bit into a new position. I mean,
a new position. Yeah, they're trying to change their position on the international
It's a tug of war between the West and
between powers.
China,
Yeah,
exactly.
And us little guys are stuck in between at our own detriment. Brother Suleiman from Nigeria, you had a question, brother.
The Kofi Annan peace plan.
Yeah.
Personally, I think if the Syrians would kind of hear it, following that peace plan is kind of the best thing for the protesters to do right now, because even yesterday, Sergei Lavrov of Russia, the Russian foreign minister, he said, even if the FSA or the rebels, like the regime will say, are armed to the teeth, they wouldn't defeat the Syrian government. He didn't just wake up to say that. Right. They are strongly, I mean, when I say strongly, I mean strongly behind the Syrian government. Right. That alone is enough for Bashar Assad to stay in that power. Hillary Clinton, some weeks back, said, before Bashar leaves, it's really going to take time. And talking about China, it's like a triangle between China, let's put Russia and Syria in one place. China, Russia, Russia, Syria, and Iran in one place. Then you take Russia and China.
Right.
China, over 80% of Chinese oil is from which country? Iran. Over 40% of Russia's oil is from which country? Iran. The only naval air base, like you said, of Russia, it's in Syria. America has, they have theirs in Bahrain. You don't expect them to, you don't expect Syria Russia to back up from Syria. Then talking about the oil, I mean, I'm giving you oil, you must take care of my friend.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
So personally, I think
that's a great point.
Like you said, there are two, like they're fighting in Russia, in Syria. Sorry for mixing my words. You said it's humanitarian and political. You can call it humanitarian, political, and religious. The regime, they think it's political. The protesters, it's humanitarian. The Islamic sects are actually what's making it seem like fire, because the Sunni and Shias, they can't resolve their problem. That's known. Their problem can't be resolved. So till God knows when, they'll keep on fighting. So the problem in Syria right now, I think Annan's plan is very, very, very good, because they said on the 10th of April they're going to cease fire. That makes sense. Then gradually they can talk about everything. But looking at it, Bashar Assad is not leaving that place. They have to talk about them.
Thank you, brother, for your excellent comments. You made a lot of wonderful points. But Brother Suleiman, after he killed so many people, how can you go back to this man? It's like he's gone beyond the point of return. I mean,
he's not going back to the man. I mean, he's killing Muslims. All right?
Killing so many people.
What do the Israelites want? What do the Americans want? I mean, they can just sit back and say, God, allow him to finish them. He's doing our job for us. We're meant to be doing this, but thank God he's doing it for us. Secondly, Russia, they can't back up from there. I mean, even if NATO should be doubled ×2. A friend of mine asked me that if NATO gets into Russia, if NATO gets into Syria, can they do something? I said, of course, they can't do anything.
Right.
If they're doubled into 2, you just need Vladimir Putin. He just needs to sign a document, take them out, and they're out. 21 countries, or 28 countries of NATO, he'll take them all out. But Russia, it's a mighty entity.
Right.
Bigger than America in weapons, if you know that.
Yeah.
So it's a very simple thing for them. That's the main problem in this fight now.
But I think what he mentioned about the Iranian gas, Brother Hazem, Mr. Jalal, that was an excellent point. I'll get right to you, Brother Sharif. They rely on Iranian gas. Of course, they're not going to intervene in Syria. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes, China's supporting the regime.
Because of the relationship with Iranian gas.
Exactly.
Because Iran is supporting Syria, so the Chinese is supporting
Yeah. It's like
supporting
But the
regime
peace
instead.
plan.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the peace plan. Haven't we watched the peace plan by the Arab League? What makes it so different from Annan's mission? It's just the same mess, the same number of martyrs who are going to keep on increasing, and the Syrian regime has not even showed a single method of applying that peace plan. Tell me a single day where they stopped shooting, or they stopped arresting, or they stopped even torturing.
But you said that it even escalated. It even
they keep on
escalated.
escalating, exactly. The number of martyrs or torture or shelling on certain areas. If I tell you about, it's like, what are you going to tell, okay, a 14-year-old girl who got raped by the Syrian regime? Okay, are you going to tell her, okay, we'll just solve this peacefully and we'll let him just come along? We even tried peacefully. He's not even letting us. Tell him to stop, and we'll stop.
Yeah, right. You know, we've heard so many stories, Brother Hazem, Mr. Lau. And you know, it's like it's men being killed in front of women in front of men, mothers and wives, children in front of parents. Thank you for sharing that story with us. Just to create like an awareness and some empathy for this whole thing. It's definitely a very sad scenario. Go ahead, Brother Sharif.
Well, I do agree with my Syrian brother. Surely they won't stop. We just have to compare between the peaceful plan of Kofi Annan and the peaceful plan of Arabs here in Cairo. So it doesn't make any sense to accept Kofi Annan's plan. Okay, this is number one. Number two, I would like to focus on the perseverance. How could the youth in Syria till now didn't fed up from the very beginning till up to now? They have one aim, and they do have understand why they are trying to get this regime out of their life. That's not only that the point. At the end, I would like to know how could we as Muslims all over support our nation in Syria?
Excellent
it's very
question.
important.
Excellent question. I know you had talked about the Arab Doctor Syndicate here in Cairo, but before we answer your question, Brother Sharif, and we'll get right back to that after a short break, you're watching Huda TV's continued coverage of the political situation inside Syria, so stay tuned for more.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose whom He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy, for His messengership, for the revelation to be revealed. This is not for the human beings to make that decision. If a person would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely, truthfully, asking for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to forgive. We have as Muslims a duty, and that is to recite the book of Allah, to ponder over the verses, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to act according to the Quran. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses everything, but who would this mercy will be for? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent to all mankind. So the ummah, or the people of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are all mankind since the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam till the day of judgment. Why waste our life without getting to know every verse in the Quran, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us?
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Let's Talk, welcome back to Huda TV, and welcome back to our coverage of Inside Syria, part one of our two-part series here. And in this episode, in this series, we're talking about the political, but also very importantly, the humanitarian side of the crisis in Syria, how we got there, how do we get out, and what is going on inside Syria now. Before the break, Brother Sharif and the studio audience, you had said, how can we help the people inside Syria? I believe there's many organizations, Islamic Relief, Arab Doctor Syndicate in Cairo, and inshallah, I believe there's more organizations, the Red Crescent, that you can definitely donate money to and look online. I encourage all of us to do that, including myself.
Even the Red Crescent is not allowed to enter certain areas inside Syria.
But the Red Cross is with Jacob Kellenberger, I saw.
Sorry, Red Cross. Red Crescent is like, it's under the regime, you can say. It's like they're being, directed into certain areas.
Okay.
So.
Usually, yeah.
Well, okay. Now, Mr. I don't know, Mr. Jalal, if you've opened up YouTube, but if you open up YouTube and type in Syria bloodshed, you'll see the most gruesome images that you would think is out of a Hollywood movie. and just strange and really bizarre and weird and perverted and sick things. We heard a story about a man who had 7 children, and the soldiers came to his house and he told his father, pick one son, I'll kill him, and the rest will live. So he picked one. So they killed him. And they said, no, pick another one of your children, we'll kill the second one, and the rest will live. So of course, they did it till he killed all of them. I don't know if this is a true story. We hear these stories. But it hasn't. Before the break, you had told a really sad story about a girl that was raped, 14 years old. Are these stories confirmed, or
Yes.
where are you hearing this from? From
this is from inside Syria, and it even goes
from
on
relatives
media.
and cousins and
Yes, friends and family inside Syria. It's like I was talking about the 14-year-old. There's even a 10-year-old who got raped and she's pregnant. We're talking about a 10-year-old.
Yeah, this is disgusting. A lot of people have been talking about the religious aspect to this sectarian conflict. My personal opinion, I guess, okay, religion always plays an aspect in our lives, but I don't think it's only that simple. Like we said, there's so many factors. We can't simply say this is a religious divide. They've been living together for the last 40 years. We haven't had any sectarian violence, so why now all of a sudden? Do you believe that it's fair to say, Mr. Jalal, this is only a sectarian conflict?
I think this is one of the reasons. Because
it's one of the reasons.
Yeah, because Bashar al-Assad is from the Alawiyin sect.
Okay.
And and most of the big officials, the people who are
also
having key positions, etc., ministers, intelligence, etc., they are mostly from Alawiyins.
Okay.
So I think they would like that this sect should
rule the country.
Should be in charge, should be ruling.
But these people aren't very prudent and clever. If they think they're going to survive in Syria after this whole thing, they've created so much hatred now. In 50 years, 100, I mean, this was a short-term plan. Yeah. They're definitely not looking for the long term.
I think I'm a little bit, though it is, as Hazem said sometime back, a few minutes back, it's a little bit gloomy or something, he's said.
Right.
But I think I'm a little bit optimistic, but this will depend on how
the people
far, how long the people will stand against the regime. Because of 2 things from my own point of view. Number 1 point is that there will be more defection from the Syrian
army. Right.
Number 1. And number 2, I think this fighting, if it goes on like what happened in Egypt on the 25th of January, 26th, 27th,
right,
that the army, here was the police in Egypt, but there the army will become a little bit tired,
right,
because of the continuous
of shooting, right.
So they will not be able to go on
to continue on. Brother Hazem, I've seen a lot of YouTube videos of soldiers with their.
So it's a matter of a long, nafas al-tawili, long.
Yeah, right. I saw soldiers on YouTube saying, "This is my full name, and the army told me if you don't open fire on the protesters, we will open fire on you."
Very true.
But still, a lot of people have defected. What can you share with us about that? About the army, the Free Syrian Army, and how this is going?
Yeah, it's like people. It's like, let me say something. Some try to defect and they get killed during their defection process. Right. Exactly. Some can escape and they can only escape with their light weapons, you can say. So they still need. It's like they go to the people in the cities and the suburbs and they say, okay, just keep us in shelter with you and keep us safe, because if the army finds us, we're dead.
Yeah.
Because it's like we don't want to kill our own people.
Right.
We're just like us. And I would like to talk about the point before that. It's like the sectarian problem inside Syria. The revolution did not start sectarian, and right now it is not sectarian. It's like the people, their first demands was a free country, so that they can live free. So it's like as Muslims, Christians, whatever. They wanted to live and Alawites together.
Yeah, right.
But what they're trying to do recently, the government, not the people, the government is trying to make it sectarian by...
This is how they divide the people, put gas on the fire.
No, because they would like to be in power.
Yeah, of course, I saw some people on YouTube said that we are Alawian people, but we want to stay far away from this regime, and we're not supporting this regime anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course, who could? Brother Nabil, do you have a question or comment, brother?
Common. It's like, maybe it's sectarian, maybe it's political, but as we speak, people die.
Exactly.
People die. What must be some way to stop it. I think people from all countries must use some pressure on their government to interfere, to stop this.
I agree with that.
This is bloodshed everywhere. Every by the minute, people going down. Children, women's, men's.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah. We have some brothers from Bosnia. Go ahead, Mr. Jalal.
I'm sorry. I think I read something about a trend from the Saudi side and from the Qatari side, that they'd like to have a more aggressive approach towards the
I heard Qatar
Syria.
said they even send arms. They like to send arms.
They would like to have a carving out of a heaven side, heaven safe heaven for inside Syria, so that the opposition will be able to operate from which the opposition can operate.
Which is a bold statement coming from tiny little Qatar.
And Syria and Saudi Arabia.
You know, are they American?
Political, just like we were talking before. It's like the U.S. actually is
acts through Qatar,
Yeah, it's acts through Qatar and through Saudi Arabia, especially that the U.S. is going to elections soon. So
the U.S. acts through Qatar and Saudi Arabia, I would say, right? But I mean, Qatar is a small little country. I mean, obviously they would never say this unless they had a big support behind them.
No,
they're scared of Iran.
They have got money.
They've got money and some influence to work with there.
Which is a big asset also.
Yeah, big asset also, of course. You know, Thursday night we have a program called Correct Your Recitation with Dr. Muhammad Salah. And look, the people we bring are in the studio audience are from Bosnia. And they said, you know, the Bosnian War was a wake-up call. It was a very bad thing for us, but it woke us up to our identity as Muslims. And it was like some sort of revival about, it just clarified things for them. And afterwards they went forward in a better way. I think I want you guys to share your opinion with me. Although this is very bad, can we say it was necessary? Not necessary, but can we say a lot of good will come out of this?
Yes.
I mean, freedom has a price.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, freedom has a price, so that's why I'm so proud of the Syrian people. But I just hope they continue. I hope it's a wake-up call. Also, here in the Middle East, we say we are Egyptians or we are Syrians or Lebanese and this and that. I tell people, what is a Syrian? What is a Lebanese? I mean, weren't these countries created by the Europeans and the Americans, and they call it the Sykes-Picot Treaty? So now we created Syria. Now we're going to cut it in half again and call it another name, and cut it tomorrow into a greater Middle East. When are we going to remember that we are Muslims, or at least say we're all Arabs? Arabs have the same language, basically the same religion, same culture.
History.
Europeans, I'm sure you guys know this with the audience, they have the European Union. They're fighting to make an identity for themselves with the blue flag and yellow stars.
Exactly.
And they speak German and French, and they don't really get along. They have a bad history of wars. But they try to fight to make a federation. But here in the in the Middle East, the French Revolution poisoned our minds more than the Europeans did. More than the Arabs are more.
Yes.
Do you think, Mr. Zalal, now the Arabs have become more nationalistic than the Europeans? I asked an Arab one time who was not Syrian, what do you think about Syria? He said, it's not my problem. It's not your problem. Whose problem is it?
No. I think they are not politically conscious enough. I think so.
And you know what? I think it's.
I go back to when Gamal Abdel Nasser was there.
He had these good ideas to unite.
He was leading to that, spirit.
That pan-Arabism, at least.
Path of Arabism, pan-Arabism. Yeah.
Right, but they shot him down because it's not.
Of course, because this is not in their own interest.
Yeah.
They would like to have them divided into smaller. Even now, they are talking about
Eastern Libya.
Not only in Egypt. In Egypt also they want to have something about the southern part, that's Shalatin.
The Upper Egypt with a suit as its capital or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be a disaster. We saw what happened in Sudan.
And also in Libya, as you said very rightly. And what is happening in Iraq is a big example.
Oh yeah, we'll see what happens with we've seen maps that say Sunni Iraq, Kurdistan, Shia Iraq. Do you think Syria will break up into more countries, or
those people have been together?
Too small already, right? Yeah.
They have been together for so long, and they have a great history of being together.
Right.
And this will not happen, and people actually know this.
Right.
The regime keeps on trying to divide people.
Right.
But the people are more aware of that.
I don't think the Syrian people will lose their will now. It's been over a year. They've been going so strong. I don't see them stopping or giving up. What do you think?
Exactly. As I told you, in the 80s, that was big shot for them. It's like we lost many people during that time. And right now, people will not stop by any chance. People stand in defiance to the regime.
Right.
And they will get their freedom sooner or later.
Inshallah, we certainly hope so. Mr. Jalal, there's no political culture, in my opinion, in the Middle East. I'm not being negative or rude. What I'm saying is we have suffered here from colonialism. We have suffered here from post-colonialism and dictatorships. But it's time to take matters into our own hands and take our destiny into our own hands, which is what I believe the Tunisians, Egyptians, and Syrians, and Yemenis, all of them have done, which is why I'm so happy. But do you think there's no political culture in the Middle East? People are they accept the fact that they have a ruler for 30 years who makes fraudulent elections. If this happened in Canada, the people would never accept it, right? Why?
I think, I myself think that the new generation will be by far better than us.
By far better, inshallah. Yeah, I certainly hope so.
Young people are going to take over, and this present, people who in charge. I don't want to name countries so that
X, Y, and Z, so we keep our guys.
Yeah. But I think all over the area, I think in the next most possibly 20 years or 25 years, I think the whole face of the quite a number of the Arab countries will change.
For the better.
Yeah.
Inshallah. And we're almost to the end of the episode. Brother Hazib, can you just sum up your thoughts in about 30 seconds? What do you see for the future Middle East? Positive outlook or negative?
I'm an optimistic person, so I always see positives on my side. And like the bloodshed that Muslim, Arab, humanitarian blood lost in the Arab Spring, not only in Syria, but in the whole Arab Spring, will not go in vain. People will go for the best, whether it's political or in communities or in any kind of way. People will do the best for their countries and for those lost souls for the souls we lost.
Excellent. Thank you, Brother Hazib. Thank you both for joining me. It's been a pleasure to have you guys. I hope to have you for part 2 for another episode, inshallah. But if you're not available, just anytime you have an open invitation to the TV and let's talk. You guys, thank you so much in the studio audience as well. My final thoughts, daily dose of matter. This is our new generation right here. And I want to give the viewers also my thoughts. I think education is the way forward. Literacy is the way forward. This is the big problem I think we are facing in the Middle East. We have countries with this huge illiteracy rate. I think once we educate ourselves, educate our children, of course, inshallah, we only have a better future to look towards. And so we just want to continue to show our solidarity to the Syrian people and support them with our prayers and our thoughts. And inshallah, we hope to see you, Syria and the Middle East, with a better future, inshallah, for us and our children. So until next time, we leave you in the care of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're treading seems all uphill, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're treading seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the dips are high, and you want to smile but have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt. Success is a failure turned inside out.